following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, even turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, June the 11th, 2026. Your reader, Ken Drost. Now, opening with the front page, the politics of Pride Month has economic consequences. Companies are weighing the costs to brands in a culture war. Jessica Ginn, I believe that's how you pronounce it, of USA Today writes, Levi Strauss & Company's Pride Collection celebrates queer motorcycle clubs as the community protectors who became symbols of strength, safety, and solidarity. Non-binary artist Alva Skog created a collection of rainbow clothing and gear, including a camping chair for REI. Apple has a Pride-themed Sport Loop watch band and Pride wallpaper for the iPhone and iPad. Abercrombie & Fitch's Made with Pride lineup is accompanied by a $400,000 donation to youth crisis intervention organization, the Trevor Project. But this year's Pride Month still has far less rainbow bling and fewer corporate sponsorships. Pride Month has suffered corporate defections ever since gay and transgender rights emerged as a culture war flashpoint, and the Trump administration cracked down on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. With support for same-sex marriages and other LGBTQ plus issues flagging, major brands shrank budgets and muted their support of the nation's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer population in an effort to avoid the go woke, go broke backlash that roiled Bud Light, Harley-Davidson, and Target in previous years. But that approach can have consequences as well. Some 77% of LGBTQ plus shoppers and 86% of LGBTQ plus and Gen Z respondents said they would pay more for a brand that meaningfully supports gay and trans people in issues, according to new data. The Harris poll provided exclusively to USA Today, 2/3 said they have paid more. Now, even when budgets are tight, nearly 3/4 said they are likely to stick with brands that support causes or communities they care about. When a brand holds back, that's a red flag for LGBTQ plus shoppers, 42% of whom said they trust it less, and 38% look for another brand. The survey of nearly 5,000 U.S. adults, including more than 1,000 LGBTQ plus consumers, found. A more muted approach to Pride may soften public blowback, but it also risks alienating customers who expect companies to stick up for their values. Tim Oshetsky, Director of Thought, Leadership, and Trends at the Harris Poll, told USA Today. Now, LGBTQ plus consumers are telling us that they notice when brands pull back. They can tell when support feels performative, and many change how they shop when support disappears, he said. Although feelings aren't as strong among the non-LGBTQ plus shoppers surveyed, 4 out of 10 said that they would pay more for a brand that meaningfully supports LGBTQ plus people and issues, and just over 1/4 said that they have done so in the past year. More than half said they would stick with brands that support causes or communities they care about, even when budgets are tight. What's more, 80% said that they would be more likely to support brands that stand up for their values in the face of public criticism. And 77% said they feel more positively toward brands that support the communities their loved ones belong to. Now, LGBTQ plus inclusion is not as niche as some brands may assume. More than half of Americans say they either identify as LGBTQ plus or personally know somebody who does. Now, that is a huge reminder for brands. This is not just about speaking to one discrete audience, Oshetsky said. For brands, LGBTQ plus support reaches friends, family members, co-workers, and parents as well. If brands are pulling back because they think that kind of support only matters to a small group, they may be badly misreading how personally connected many Americans are to this community. Now, observed every year in June, Pride Month celebrates the rise of the modern gay and trans movement after the 1969 police raid of New York's Stonewall Inn. In recent decades, corporations emerged as important allies in the fight for gay rights, promoting LGBTQ plus equality internally with inclusive policies and publicly supporting same-sex marriage and opposing transgender bathroom laws. Pride Month became a magnet for rainbow capitalism, a golden opportunity for corporations to win over LGBTQ plus wallets with splashy promotions signaling support for LGBTQ plus people. These shoppers represent a massive customer base, $1.4 trillion annual purchasing power, according to Merrill Lynch analysis from 2023. At the same time, that customer base is growing. Gallup poll estimates that almost 1 out of 10 U.S. adults identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or something other than heterosexual, higher than readings of 7% between 2021 and 23, and more than double the share in 2012. The numbers are fastest growing among young people. Nearly 1/4 of adults under 30 identify as LGBTQ plus. These younger consumers especially expect and demand trust, said Bob Witek, president of Witek Communications, which is an LGBTQ plus marketing firm. What we know is that consumer trust is among the truest measures of a brand's reputation, hard-earned and too easily squandered, Witek said. Texas teen sentenced in track meet murder. A jury gives a 19-year-old Anthony 35-year sentence. Indea Yancey Bragg and Amanda Lee Myers of USA Today co-wrote the following short article. A Texas teenager has been found guilty of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison for stabbing a student from a rival high school in a case that drew nationwide attention. The Collin County jury found 19-year-old Carmelo Anthony guilty of murder on Tuesday, June the 9th, in the stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf in Frisco, Texas. Hours later, the jury sentenced him to 35 years in prison, according to court spokesman. Jurors could have sentenced Anthony to as little as 2 years in prison, or even up to the rest of his life behind bars. Anthony, who attended Centennial High School at the time, always has maintained he stabbed Austin, a student at Memorial, in self-defense. Anthony's mother, Kayla Hayes, tearfully told jurors she believes he regrets what he did. NBC DFW reported. She asked the jurors, "Please have mercy on my son. He'll always be my baby." As part of the sentencing hearing, Austin's parents addressed Anthony directly. Megan Metcalf said her son was a peacemaker and protector and recalled how she would scratch his back as he told her about his day. Now, she said, her conversations are one-sided and done at her son's graveside. You may have just been given a sentence of 35 years. You should feel lucky, because I've been sentenced to a life without my son," she told Anthony, according to the outlet. "My son was murdered," she said. "He didn't just die, he was taken from us, just as he was starting to live." The trial, which began with jury selection on June 1st, included emotional testimony from eyewitnesses and graphic video footage of the event. The judge in this case banned cameras, live stream, and audio recording inside the courtroom and imposed a gag order on attorneys, witnesses, investigators, and others involved in the proceedings. Several student athletes who were not identified publicly testified that Anthony entered Austin's tent to say hello to a friend and then quickly got defensive when he was asked to leave, according to CBS. Teen witnesses, including the one who testified for the defense, agreed that Anthony provoked Austin into pushing him and said they were surprised Anthony brought a weapon to the track meet. Memorial High School head track coach Rob Starr told jurors he heard the commotion begin around 10 a.m. on April the 2nd of last year, and he found Austin with a hole in his chest. Eduardo Cortez, a school resource officer, testified that when he reported having the alleged suspect in handcuffs, Anthony replied, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Cortez said Anthony also asked whether Austin would be okay, according to CBS. Prosecutor Bill Werski told jurors Anthony started the confrontation with Austin, immediately admitted he stabbed him, and told bystanders Austin touched him first, as if that justifies the murder he just committed. You don't get to meet a shove with a stab, especially if you provoke the shove, Werski said later in his closing arguments, according to the outlet. Anthony's attorney, Mike Howard, painted Austin and his twin as the aggressors, according to NBC. Howard said Anthony warned Austin not to touch him and had a right to defend himself after Austin initiated contact. There is no evidence Carmelo did anything but really think he was defending himself in that split second of chaos. The case had been marked by controversy, racial tensions, and public demonstrations. As the murder trial began, supporters of both families gathered outside the courthouse, alongside activists and online personalities, highlighting the public interest in the case. The case struck a deep nerve in the North Texas community and beyond. Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis said, when announcing the grand jury indictment on Anthony, "When something like this happens at a school event, it shakes people to the core." Now, Anthony was allowed to receive his high school diploma, but was barred from graduation festivities. Austin's twin brother, Hunter Metcalf, accepted a posthumous diploma on his behalf at the ceremony. Supporters of both families have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars through online fundraisers. Hayes said at a news conference in April of last year that her family has endured harassment, death threats, rumors, and a leak of their home and work addresses. Whatever you think that happened between Carmelo and the Metcalf boys, my 3 younger children, my husband, and I didn't do anything to deserve to be threatened, harassed, and lied about, she said. Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, tried to attend the news conference but was escorted from the building by Dallas police, according to Fox. The Metcalf's empty home was swatted just hours later when Frisco police received a call about a gunshot at the address, according to a local media report. Metcalf said a memorial service for his son. At that particular memorial service, he had forgiven Anthony, according to KGFW-TV. After the indictment, he told local media that he was pleased that we're moving forward. Justice will be served for his son. Meanwhile, the social justice organization Next Generation Action Network has raised concerns about double standards in the case against Anthony and expressed outrage at the jury selection process. The prosecution used its final strikes to remove the remaining qualified black jurors from the jury pool, raising serious concerns about fairness and equal justice, the group said on social media. Officials confirm a screwworm case in a dog in New Mexico. Additional cases also are found in Texas counties. Mateo Rosiles of USA Today Network writes this brief article. The New World screwworm has now been detected in 2 Texas counties, and New Mexico reported its first case in a dog more than 400 miles from the original outbreak zone in Texas. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:15. Continuing the article, 3 additional cases of New World screwworm were confirmed in the United States. A calf in LaSalle County, a goat in Gillespie County, Texas, and a dog in Lee County, New Mexico, all on June 8th by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The Lee County dog case is a USDA reclassification that originally was announced as occurring in Andrews County, Texas, according to a department update. While the veterinarian who reported the case is located in Texas, the dog resides in a household in Lee County, New Mexico. So the location of the case is going to be reclassified to be the first case detected in New Mexico. The USDA said it believes the New Mexico case is isolated because of the dog's recent travels, but the exposure history remains unknown. The New Mexico Department of Agriculture is addressing screwworm awareness through a website unveiled in May, and it's called screwwormnm, as in New Mexico.org. The site provides information on recognizing infestations, reporting suspected cases, and contacting experts. The site also tracks known cases. Sorry, I lost my spot over here. Moving back to page 2. Disease risks cast a shadow over the World Cup. Experts are worrying about outbreaks after cutbacks. Swapna Venugopal Ramaswamy and Ken Altucker of USA Today co-write the following article. With millions of soccer fans and tourists set to travel to 11 U.S. cities hosting the World Cup in the upcoming weeks, public health officials are wary of potential risks from infectious diseases, such as the Ebola outbreak racing through Central Africa. The sporting event comes after the United States exited the World Health Organization and dismantled the U.S. Agency for International Development, which is called USAID, USAID, which helped monitor infectious diseases and supplied personnel's protective gear to health workers all over the globe. Federal, state, and local public health officials emphasized that the public's risk for Ebola is low. But the U.S.'s retreat from the worldwide public health stage amid the outbreak in Africa and a worldwide measles outbreak now has some experts concerned that any weakening of public health makes Americans susceptible to infectious disease. Of the 48 teams participating in the 2026 World Cup, 39 are going to train in the U.S., and their fans are going to follow. The international travelers arrive as the nation's public health backbone. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention does not have a full-time leader and has faced major cuts. The Trump administration's sweeping reductions in the federal workforce have reduced the agency's staff by nearly 30% since last year. The federal cuts make preparing for the World Cup a daunting task for federal, state, and local public health agencies, according to Jennifer Nuzzo, a professor of epidemiology and director of the Pandemic Center at Brown University. When you have a lot of people coming from all over the world, gathering for extended periods of time, that is really ripe for a health emergency, Nuzzo said. So it takes resources and a plan to be able to handle that. It takes resources to make sure hospitals are ready for an influx of patients above what they normally see. In an email response to USA Today, Andrew Nixon, spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services, pushed back against the idea that staff cuts are going to affect CDC response. Within hours of notification, the CDC mobilized resources, activated response operations, deployed personnel and resources to Africa, imposed travel restrictions, expanded traveler screenings and contact tracing, enhanced hospital readiness and laboratory capacity, and supported the evacuation and care of exposed Americans, he wrote. Nixon said the CDC is developing a dedicated World Cup data dashboard to give state and local health departments enhanced visibility into disease trends both within and beyond their jurisdictions. Now, other than Ebola, public health guarding against these threats, a more likely health threat when mass travelers congregate are illnesses like COVID-19, the flu, RSV, and norovirus, according to Ostrowski. Another potential threat, measles. West Texas was the epicenter of measles cases in the U.S. in 2025, and United States measles cases this year have surpassed the number of infections in 2025, which was the largest, deadliest outbreak since measles was declared eliminated in the U.S. in the year 2000. Now, measles infections can strain public health agencies. Example, public health workers had to contact and follow up with more than 40 people in Rhode Island tied to just one case of measles. Tracking down a measles case linked to soccer matches, hotels, or practice facilities at any of the U.S. World Cup host cities would be a logistical nightmare, Nuzzo said. Although Ebola is unlikely to be a threat during the World Cup, Ostrowski said the outbreak underscores the importance of investing in public health to protect Americans. Now, state and local health departments remain in close contact with CDC staff, but those who work at the top public health body described an agency in flux. On a recent call with employees at the CDC, Jay Bhattacharya, director of the National Institutes of Health and the most recent among a rotating cast of leadership fill-ins, said he could no longer serve as acting director. President Donald Trump had not formally nominated a permanent pick to the Senate, and according to federal law, an official can serve for only 210 days in an acting capacity. Therefore, he would be acting in the capacity of the director, or some weird legal term like that, an employee who was on the call and granted anonymity to speak freely, told USA Today. Bhattacharya, the employee said, compared the situation to an episode of The Office. The lack of permanent leadership comes at a time when the country is trying to keep two diseases at bay, hantavirus and Ebola. Asked if the CDC is prepared for another pandemic-like event, a senior employee said, while the agency is better prepared than during the COVID pandemic, the lack of staff and loss of experience continues to be a concern. Still, the response by the CDC will remain unchanged, the senior employee said. Our process is our process regardless of who is on top. Another CDC employee echoed that sentiment. In some ways, I think CDC is better prepared now, at least in terms of infrastructure and processes. The employee said, people is a different question. We've lost key experts, and many of those remaining are just burned out. We don't have the same level of ties for strong international coordination and cooperation. Former CDC Director Tom Frieden, who oversaw the agency during the 2014 through 16 Ebola outbreak, said, lacking a full-time director during an Ebola outbreak can without a doubt weigh on rank-and-file workers. That has obviously been an enormously difficult time for the agency, Frieden said. CD staff have been vilified by their own secretary. CDC staff have been fired or seen unscientific ideological opinions overrule scientific expertise. Now, the United States withdrew from WHO in January, that's World Health Organization, ending a partnership that began in 1948. Although WHO comprises 194 members, the United States has, for decades, carried a disproportionate share of the group's financial burden, according to HHS. And that was their announcement, among other reasons. Instead, the HHS said it would encourage and engage partners directly and deploy resources efficiently. The State Department told USA Today that as of June the 5th, it had signed 32 bilateral global health memorandums of understanding with the countries of Angola, Bolivia, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cambodia, Cameroon, Côte d'Ivoire, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Guatemala, Guinea, Honduras, Kenya, Lesotho, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, Nigeria, Panama, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, Rwanda, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Tajikistan, and Uganda. The signed memorandums include provisions for real-time sharing of global health security and disease surveillance data, which is exactly what's needed to track emerging threats like hantavirus and Ebola. This, according to a State Department spokesperson. The agreement with Rwanda, for example, includes $10 million to expand disease outbreak surveillance and establish a biothreat radar system that monitors potential outbreaks in the broader East and Central African region. Frieden said the idea of individual countries taking more responsibility for their health and public health contracting is good. But he said it's difficult to do amid an outbreak like Ebola. You can't do it overnight and hope that it's going to succeed, because it won't, Frieden said. It will just result in a massive disruption of services. The House sends a $70 billion bill for ICE and Border Patrol to Trump's desk for signing. Zachary Shermel of USA Today writes, the House of Representatives passed a massive, roughly $70 billion cash influx for Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol, sending the bill to President Trump's desk for his signature. The chamber approved the party line legislation on June 9 with a vote of 214 to 212. The Senate passed it last week. All Democrats and only one Republican, Alaska's Lisa Murkowski, voted against it. The Secure America's Act success in the House marked the last substantive hurdle for this controversial bill, a major GOP priority as the midterms approach, after months of back and forth on Capitol Hill over immigration enforcement funding since federal agents killed 2 Minnesotans earlier this year. The additional money, which provides 3 years of funding, cemented the political divide between Republicans and Democrats over support for ICE and Border Patrol ahead of the November elections. It may well be among the final pieces of major legislation that congressional Republicans, with just a slim House majority, can realistically push across the finish line before then. The agencies were left out of a broader Department of Homeland Security appropriations bill that passed Congress in late April, on the heels of a record-long partial government shutdown. After federal agents shot Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy among anti-ICE clashes, Democrats dug in their heels, refusing to back funding for immigration enforcement without significant changes. Republicans gave ICE $170 billion last July, and in less than 1 year, they want to give them $70 billion more. This from Representative Morgan McGarvey, Democrat from Kentucky, as he said on the House floor. $240 billion in honest-to-God stormtroopers? Without any help from Democrats, Republicans turned to a budgetary process called reconciliation to pass the legislation. The maneuvering allowed GOP leaders to sidestep Democrats and avoid the Senate's 60-vote threshold. Before the bill passed, Republicans railed against their Democratic colleagues for what they characterized as an anti-law enforcement stance. It's a travesty to hear such denigrating terms, to see my colleagues in the United States House chamber vilifying people who wear the uniform on behalf of all of us and our families, according to Representative Jody Arrington, a Republican from Texas. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30. And I think it's time to switch over to the money section. Mortgage distress is rising again. Guardrails started after the 2008 crisis are no longer there. Andrea Riquier of USA Today writes, from her office in Painesville, Ohio, just north of Cleveland, Patricia Kidd has a front row seat for the ups and downs of the housing market. The area often was considered the ground zero of the 2010s foreclosure crisis, but since then, soaring housing costs have had many residents struggling with the same affordability issues as the rest of the country. Now, Kidd is the executive director of the Fair Housing Resource Center, an agency certified by the Department of Housing and Urban Development to provide all kinds of services, from counseling that helps people achieve home ownership to complaints about civil rights abuses by landlords. But when President Trump took office in 2025 and his administration made wide-ranging cuts to federal funding, Kidd's budget was slashed. She had to lay off 4 full-time and 12 part-time workers, and subsequent policy changes have meant that the remaining staff cannot offer many of the services Ohioans have counted on for years. Folks don't have the financial resources, and they're falling behind, Kidd said. Their budgets are tighter than they were, and there's nowhere for them to call. A HUD spokesperson responded to a USA Today request for comment for this piece with an email saying, HUD has focused on strengthening housing programs and supporting households most reliant on federal assistance. This has resulted in approximately 1.5 million Americans getting FHA-insured single-family mortgages, over 80% of whom are first-time home buyers. Well, despite the bullish sheen of the official economic data, many Americans are struggling. Delinquencies are rising on everything from student loans to credit cards. But there may be no metric more carefully watched than mortgage distress, because perhaps the outsized role home loans played in bringing the financial system to its knees in 2008. Now, we're nowhere close to that, observers say. But the economy of 2026 has its own challenges that couldn't have been imagined just a few years ago. And as observers, including Kidd, help average Americans navigate the housing market, it's sometimes hard to remember all the careful post-2008 planning that went into anticipating the next downturn. So, as of March, the share of mortgages nationwide in any stage of delinquency, meaning that they are 30 days or more past due, was 3%. Now that's an 0.2 percentage point increase from March of last year, according to real estate analytics firm Cotality. The national foreclosure inventory rate, or the percentage of homes in active foreclosure among all homes with a mortgage, rose to 0.4%. That's the highest level in 6 years. Well, as to be expected, said Selma Hepp, Cotality's chief economist. Once the distress of the subprime bubble worked its way out of the system, delinquencies and foreclosures hovered near rock-bottom lows for several years. Lending tightened up drastically after the bubble burst, and later policies enacted at the height of the COVID pandemic gave homeowners some grace in paying their mortgage during a difficult time. But now delinquencies are still low relative to history, according to Hepp. But the fact that they are concentrated among buyers who generally have to stretch to buy a house, those with loans backed by the Federal Housing Administration and the VA, among others, suggest more distress could lie ahead. Even more worrisome is that its recent borrowers, those who bought from 2022 on, who are having the most trouble. That suggests that the combination of high home prices and elevated interest rates may be proving to be too much for many recent entrants into the market. Cuts to agencies like KIDS are hitting at precisely the wrong time, she said in an interview. As the overall cost of living surges, homeowners in her areas are increasingly having trouble paying the mortgage. The cuts to both funding and programming means that she and her staff have to turn away people looking for help. KIDS said, "That breaks my heart." Now, this is a sort of a canary in a coal mine, according to Sharon Cornelison, Director of Housing for the Consumer Federation of America. It's a national nonprofit advocacy group. We have come from historically low levels of distress, and recently we had historically low interest rates, which gave a boost to our affordability. But as the metrics by which lenders evaluated borrowers have relaxed slightly, conditions have eroded. People are really at the edge of even affording a home, Cornelison said. It feels uncomfortably like the key lesson of the subprime bubble. Lenders must ensure borrowers have an ability to repay. That may have been sidelined in the well-intentioned push to get people into homeownership, she said. It's almost always the case, even post-financial crisis, that the overwhelming majority of borrowers became distressed because something has happened to tip them into trouble. Job loss, natural disaster, a death in the family. From what can be seen in Cotality's data, Hepp suspects it's largely a similar situation right now. Example, the destructive 2024 hurricanes may be leading to defaults in South Carolina and Georgia, she says, while surging insurance costs may be pressuring borrowers in California and Florida. Despite those exogenous factors, however, the distress among borrowers who bought homes relatively recently and could afford only a handful of monthly payments, or perhaps none at all, hints at something more troubling, according to Hepp. Many of those owners may have bought with the assumption that they'd be able to refinance to a lower rate quickly, only to get stuck when it didn't happen. Whatever the reason for defaults, housing observers are most concerned that the guardrails put in place after the housing crisis are no longer there. It's not just the housing counseling programs that have been gutted. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has axed staff, deleted online resources, and dropped regulation enforcement actions. In this year of 2026, this is exactly the wrong time to make it harder for homeowners in distress to get help, KIDS said. Access has got to be easier, not harder. When somebody is struggling, the first question should be, how can we help? Not, which funding category do you fit into? Multiple updates are coming with Apple's iOS 27 this fall. Siri AI, more safety features included. Now, Apple users are in store for some big updates coming later this year. This according to Greta Cross of USA Today. During its annual Worldwide Developers Conference on June the 8th, Apple announced the release of the iOS 27, which includes several software updates, notably the launch of Siri AI. The new and improved version of the longtime virtual assistant relies more heavily on artificial intelligence. This year's WWDC will remain memorable as CEO Tim Cook's final conference before stepping down September 1. After 15 years of leading the tech giant, Cook announced in April that he was leaving the helm for a role as executive chairman. John Ternus, Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering, is going to take his place. So, missed the live stream? Well, here's a quick overview of what you may have missed from WWDC 26. Siri AI, independent Siri app. So Siri is getting an overhaul with iOS 27. The newly announced Siri AI runs on Apple Intelligence. That Siri is capable of working across multiple apps, providing commentary based on information in a captured photo, responding to emails and text messages in a user's tonal voice, and providing writing suggestions even on most third-party apps. Sebastian Marinomes, Apple Vice President of Software Engineering, said during the presentation. Siri AI also is getting an expanded look and sound. Users will be able to have a more traditional AI chatbot experience with Siri. On iPhone, when speaking to Siri, users now have the ability to sweep down on the Siri pop-up to see a full chatbot conversation transcript. This from Justin Teedy, Apple Director of I/O System Experience. Further customization of Siri's voice is also available, including pacing and expressivity. And finally, Siri will get its own app with iOS 27, allowing users to revisit previous conversations with the virtual assistant. With iOS 27, users have more control over how liquid glass appears on devices using a new sliding scale in the Settings app. Users can choose a liquid glass interface that is more ultra clear or fully tinted. A new default liquid glass interface also further diffuses background content to create more depth from foreground content, according to Kedia. Several apps are seeing upgrades with more robust Apple Intelligence, including Safari, Apple's internet browser. With the 27, Safari offers a new way to organize browser tabs by topics, such as writing resources, cooking, gym clothes. To save a grouping of tabs, folks can use Safari's Tab Groups feature, which saves tabs together, even when the browser is closed. The new Safari also can monitor pages and send relevant notifications to users. For example, a user can set an alert on a retail web page for when a specific dress restocks. Safari will monitor the web page, and if the dress is available again, Safari will send a notification to the user. And finally, folks may use the Apple Intelligence to create custom Safari extensions. You want to create a browser extension that allows you to save, log, and rate online recipes? Safari can create one for you. And also, the 27 is going to include a plethora of new child safety features, including the creation of child accounts. The new accounts allow guardians to block adult websites, create edge restrictions in the App Store, set screen time schedules for entertainment, media, and gaming apps, and enable a blur filter for any content that may include nudity via text message or FaceTime. This from Apple Director of Trust, Safety, and Values. Although apps and websites may be restricted, child accounts do allow younger users to request permission to apps, websites, and even new contacts. A request is sent to the guardian's device, which can be approved remotely. Apple's AI image generation also is improving with iOS 27. Apple's Image Playground, for example, is capable of creating more hyper-realistic photos based on prompts. Users also have access to more AI photo editing tools in the Photos app. The new Reframe tool, for example, allows users to change the composition of a photo after it has been taken. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45. Considering my age and iPhones and swiping and apps and all that stuff, my wife and I basically just talk louder when we're trying to communicate in the house. Just putting that out there. Gen Alpha driving family spending. Children are becoming influential purchase brokers in an economy, according to 2 studies. Betty Lynn Fisher of USA Today writes, "Watch out, because the youngest consumers are coming to make their mark." Generation Alpha, or children who are up to the age of 16, are becoming influential purchase brokers in the shopping economy, and their parents are listening, according to 2 different studies. Kids and teens between the ages of 8 and 15 directly control, are you ready, $95 billion and have a sway over bigger picture household spending, according to a new study by DKC, a communications and marketing firm that advises brands. In a study of 1,000 parents of Gen Alpha kids, 90% said that they have changed their consumer behavior because of their child's preferences. 41% said all household spending decisions are affected by their Gen Alpha child. More and more, this gateway generation is becoming the director of household spending for the families. This from Matthew Traub, CEO of DKC. Spending money for Gen Alpha kids is coming from allowances for doing chores, 78%, payment for good grades, 67%, and their own side hustles like mowing lawns and babysitting. That's another 57%, according to the survey. Some 14% are even getting paid for online selling and reselling of goods. Now, DKC surveyed parents of Gen Alpha kids between the ages of 8 and 15. This is the first generation that is growing up with AI and other digital tools at their disposal, which has helped them as they shop and in some cases start their own businesses, according to Traub. It has given them this opportunity to be entrepreneurs at a very early age. The seamlessness of or ease of digital transactions and kids being able to easily use their parents' digital payment methods also make purchasing easy for this generation, according to Traub. Gen Alpha kids grew up on screens preloaded with payment methods during the COVID pandemic, which made them incredibly adept at navigating online marketplaces, according to Ali Furman, U.S. consumer market industry leader for PwC, a professional services company. Many of them learned to swipe before they could write, and they learned to negotiate before they could drive, Furman told USA Today. PwC surveyed 1,000 children between the ages of 7 and 14 and their parents, and 97% of the Gen Alpha kids said they were buying something independently some of the time. More options are available for kids to have their own digital payment accounts, including Apple Cash, Greenlight, teen checking accounts, and Cash App. Retailers like Amazon offer kid accounts with independent spending limits and parent-approved options. 52% of Gen Alpha surveys respondents were adding items to shared carts for their parents to review. It's like a modern version of, can we get this? Furman said, putting items in an online shopping cart. Kendall Byerline, 14, of West Islip, New York, put things in an online shopping cart to signal to her mom, Kylie, to buy her something. She loads the cart, Kylie told USA Today. Now, added Kendall, I tell her about it and then I ask for her permission and then we buy it. Kylie said Kendall has good self-discipline and does not ask for too much. So Kylie usually will buy what it is in the cart. Kendall said she is usually shopping online for clothing as seasons change or she outgrows a previous size. Kylie agreed with the survey results, saying parents' purchases are influenced by their children, saying that she's not on social media much, but knows Kendall and her friends are seeing things they want or reviews online. 61% of Gen Alpha respondents in the PwC report said they were influenced to buy something from social media, while 56% cited peer influence. So, what does Gen Alpha influence? Gen Alpha's influence on their parents spans a wide range of categories. 52% of parents in the DKC study said they were more likely to try new or different foods, and even 30% of parents, including 43% of moms, said that they're more likely to try new beauty products suggested by their kids. 38% of parents said they were more likely to travel to new vacation destinations. 33%, including 40% of dads, were more likely to watch new or different sports. But Gen Alpha kids aren't just influencing what their parents buy. They're influencing what they don't buy. Nearly half of parents, 47%, said that they will avoid brands disliked by their children. Gen Alpha kids make value judgments about brands more than previous generations did, according to Traub. They're putting their fingers on the scale for the brands they like, but also for the ones they don't. So, how is this generation different? Kids and teens always have pestered their parents to buy them things. What makes Gen Alphas more successful? Well, the biggest shift we're looking at are very digital and deal-oriented, Traub said. Parents are saying they are paying more attention to ChatGPT and other AI tools as a result of the influence of the Gen Alpha child. And they've increased their online purchases and are more likely to use social media to look up product reviews. Because Gen Alpha kids are so much more comfortable than previous generations with AI, including using AI to search for and discover brands and products online to buy, it makes them different than previous generations of kids asking parents to buy them something, Furman said. Parents hold the credit cards, but kids are shaping the card, she said. Kids have nagged their parents for things they've wanted throughout time. But I think that this generation is particularly adept at strategic negotiation, and they're using other means of convincing their parents that frankly did not exist before, Furman said, including making PowerPoint presentations. The online cart, in some ways, is becoming the new family group chat, she said. And since these young consumers have become so adept at shopping and influencing their parents, Furman said, we believe by adulthood, many of these kids could have a decade of experience earning, negotiating, and allocating capital. They're going to enter the workforce not as employees, but as operators. I remember when I was a kid growing up, the only thing I kept asking my parents was, can I please get out of the attic? Some users are breaking up with Google. Many are interested in internet search without AI. Greta Cross of USA Today writes, Google is changing, and some users are hungry for a search engine reminiscent of the good old days. On May 19, Google announced the biggest update to its search bar in more than 25 years, the addition of more artificial intelligence capabilities. So while the traditional Google search isn't going away, the tech giant rolled out several new updates to Google Search AI mode, including more natural chatbot conversations, the introduction of AI personal assistants, and improved online booking capabilities. While Google is hyping up the features, some users interested in an internet search without AI are turning to alternative search engines. Competitors also say they're seeing more users following Google's update. DuckDuckGo, that's a search engine that promotes privacy-protected searching, has experienced an increase in downloads since Google's announcement on May 19. June 1st, DuckDuckGo search traffic hit an all-time high, and U.S. installations of that app peaked at 70% higher the week of June the 1st than the week of May 12th. Now that's before Google's announcement. DuckDuckGo Chief Communications and Policy Officer Kamal Bazbaz told USA Today. He did not elaborate on the engine's search traffic record, but said, on average, DuckDuckGo sees more than 110 million searches every day. Germany-based search engine Ecosia has also experienced increased use. Christian Kroll, CEO and founder of Ecosia, told USA Today in an email that over the past 2 weeks, U.S.-based Ecosia searches have grown by nearly 40%, while installs have more than doubled. We are seeing a clear sentiment that people do not want AI to be non-optional. And this is playing out in the numbers, Kroll said. They are fleeing big tech and seeking alternatives that align with their values. So while there are plenty of alternative search engines, a web filter created by Google has also seen an uptick in use. When Google launched AI Overview in 2024, it created a web filter that users can add to the end of a Google search URL to present a Google search result without artificial intelligence overview. The web filter, a string of text, is the and sign UDM equals 14. Not long after the web filter was quietly released, tech writer Ernie Smith created a web page for it. When searching on Smith's web page, the filter is automatically added to a search rather than a user needing to manually add it to the end of a search URL. You've been listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, June the 11th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your reader so far, Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Will Evans. Our first article is from the Life section. Frampton carries on 50 years after his breakout. In a cozy room decorated with guitars on the wall and a keyboard by his side, Peter Frampton is smiling. He's quick to motion to the beautiful black dog stretched across a couch in the background. It's his Labradoodle, Bigsby, who, as Frampton's service dog, is never more than a few feet away. It's hard to pick things up. I've got grabbers and I've got him, Frampton says. He's referring to the inclusion body myositis he has endured since 2015, a progressive degenerative muscle disease that hampers some of his movements. But Frampton, who's 76, is still knocking out guitar riffs and crafting taut melodic rockers, as can be heard on Carry the Light, his recently released first album of all new material in 16 years, and one he made with his son, Julian. Along with his new album, Frampton is stepping back into the spotlight with a documentary, Frampton, directed by his longtime band leader, Rob Arthur. The film, which premiered at Tribeca Festival on June 4th, delves into the singer-guitarist's health challenges, but it also is framed as a legacy-reminding love letter to Frampton Comes Alive, the landmark live album celebrating its 50th anniversary. In a recent conversation, the good-natured Frampton recalled the pressures that came with the stratospheric success of the pioneering release, as well as updates on his health and why he pays tribute to Tom Petty on Carry the Light. Question. First of all, how are you feeling these days? Peter Frampton's answer, I feel great. I'm very lucky inasmuch as this disease is very slow moving. I'm still playing guitar. It's a little bit different. I'm a little restricted, but I always find the positive in things. I can't do it that way, but I can do it this way. I enjoy the challenge of making things work, and I'm still playing pretty good. Do you think you'll be able to tour behind this new record? We haven't got any dates booked right now, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I would like to. This album comes as you're marking the 50th anniversary of Frampton Comes Alive. What do you remember from when that album took off? It was bewildering. I went away for 10 days and came back, and suddenly we'd gone from one show on sale to 4 sold-out shows. That's when I thought, what just happened? It changed overnight. And then when it went #1 and broke records, that's when I actually got nervous. The success was exciting, but the pressure that comes with it is something else. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently at that point in your career? I started listening to everybody else rather than listening to my gut, and that was the mistake. There was no need to rush another record. Frampton Comes Alive was still #1, but there was this pressure to keep the momentum going. I'd take full responsibility for that. Now you have Carry the Light, which you created with your son, Julian. How did working with him change your process? It put things in focus for me because I'm a bit of a control freak. I've always produced my own stuff, so having another voice in the room was different. We'd written a couple of songs over the years, and then he came to visit and help me with one lyric. It was one of those moments where you think, why didn't I think of that? We're of the same DNA. He knows me, I know him, and we know what each other can do. It's another pair of ears, another pair of eyes. Suddenly we were finishing songs quickly, and when he came back for a few weeks, we finished about 16 songs right here in the studio. One of the standout tracks is your tribute to Tom Petty, Buried Treasure, with lyrics crafted from Petty song titles. What did he mean to you? I only met Tom a couple of times, but from everything I've heard, he was the real deal. For me, he was a teacher, especially through his Buried Treasure show on Sirius XM. He's basically teaching you what made him who he was. He'd play the originals, the demos, stuff you can't find anymore. That's when I realized this is what Tom Petty made Tom Petty. So I wanted to do a tribute song, something inspired by that. On Lions at the Gate, you tackle more of a political theme. What message were you trying to get across? It's my feeling about how you can buy influence, and that bothers me incredibly. There's so much money involved in politics now. When you look at it, it basically means you can buy power. That's always stuck with me, and that's where the idea came from. Unfortunately, songs like that are always timely. You also brought in Tom Morello on that track. Why him? We were thinking about who would be great to have a guitar battle with on that song. And Julian said, there's only one person if you're talking about Rage. I've always loved Rage, Against the Machine, and Audioslave, when Tom played with Chris Cornell. He got it immediately, not just lyrically, but musically. I left space for him to play, and he didn't just fill the gaps, he elevated everything. It was phenomenal. We couldn't believe it when we got the track back. You've collaborated with a lot of great artists over the years, including Sheryl Crow on this record, Breaking the Mold. What makes her special? She came into my studio and knocked out her part in about 40 minutes. That's a pro. She can sing anything, play anything. It's also probably a huge thrill for her to get to play with you, like you did at your Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, too, being that you were her first concert. There's a mutual respect and love there. She's just a beautiful person. There's no airs and graces with her. She's just one of us. Going back to your family, is it true that your grandkids call you Frampa? We tried, but we were a little ahead of ourselves. Holds up a mug with a photo of him and his granddaughter, Elle. We agreed on Papa. Frampa just didn't take off. She'd have to be 15 before she could say it. I have a second wonderful granddaughter, Rain, who is 2, and yeah, I'm Papa to her too. After everything you've been through, the health challenges, the decades in music, how do you look at this moment in your career? It's a great period for me. I'm still playing, I'm making new music, and I'm doing it with my family. I feel very lucky. Moving on to our next article now. Manilow is taking time on his road to recovery. Barry Manilow has sold more than 85 million albums, toured relentlessly for 5 decades, and won the adoration of millions around the globe. But none of that could prevent the lung cancer he was diagnosed with in December and the harrowing aftermath of surgery in January. A collapsed lung, pneumonia, and a week in the ICU, and the very real thoughts of death. Manilow, who's 82, does not avoid talking about his medical crisis. He is honest about the uncertainty around tour dates expected to resume in the United Kingdom and then the United States later in June, followed by his return to his record-setting Westgate Las Vegas residency and more American dates postponed from earlier this year. But he also is hopeful about regaining the strength needed for a full show of beloved classics such as Can't Smile Without You, Copacabana, and Mandy. He also has a new album, What a Time, out now. The collection is his first of new material in nearly 15 years and is stocked with wistful ruminations on romance, Once Before I Go, a top 10 hit on the adult contemporary chart, extending his run to 6 decades, and Turns of Triumph, the title track. Manilow recently chatted candidly and with his trademark self-deprecating humor about the turns his life has taken. Question: how are you feeling after everything you've been through these past few months? Barry Manilow's answer: it's really only been about 4 months since I started healing. I came out of surgery in January, and then my lung collapsed, so I went back into the hospital. The real healing started in February. I push myself every day, singing in my studio, trying to get stronger. Some days I feel fine, and the next day I can't even talk. But I'm getting close. I'm not sure I can do 90 minutes yet, but I'm close. You're hoping to get back on tour soon. How realistic does that feel right now? We'll find out soon. I have rehearsals coming up, and we'll see if I can get through it. I really don't want to cancel. I love performing, especially in England. I'll do everything I can to make that happen. The song Sunshine on the new album has some can't smile without you vibes. But I also noticed your voice has a deeper resonance now, and I can hear that talking to you now. Has that changed how you approach recording? Well, I haven't tried making a record since the surgery, so I don't know. Will I sound different? I know that we tried a rehearsal a couple of months ago, and I didn't sound like me a couple of months ago. When I was with my band, they were all looking at the floor. I think now maybe I sound like me again, but we'll see. Did this experience change how you think about your career or what you still want to do? I think about it all the time now. When I came out of surgery, I had pneumonia. That's what nearly got me. I was in ICU, and when I got out, I was a mess. I weighed 128 pounds. I had to rebuild myself completely. You've been very open with fans about what you went through. Why was that important to you? The response from people was overwhelming. Strangers from all over the world were rooting for me. I didn't even know they were out there. It just kept coming, all these messages. It was a very deep experience for me. Let's talk about the new album. When did this project really start for you? For the past 10 years, I've been doing concept albums, Broadway, big band, era-based projects. But during those years, I was still writing songs. I just didn't have a place to put them. Now I do. These are songs I've loved for a long time, and we finally finished them. That's what this album is. I love that you have a cover of Peaches and Herb's 1978 duet, Reunited, with Melanie Taylor as a bonus track from the album. It made me laugh because Melanie is a former harlot with Bette Midler, with whom you have a history going back to the 70s. Kind of full circle. Melanie is such a wonderful singer. It was 2 takes and she was done. My dream partner, of course, would have been Bette, but she didn't want to do it. You can't convince Bette Midler of anything. She just said she doesn't like singing anymore. You've got to convince her, and I'm not that kind of guy that would do that. But Melanie was right in front of me, and she sounded so great. You mentioned trying to write in a more contemporary pop style and deciding against it. Why? I tried writing like some of the younger artists, Billie Eilish and that style, but it didn't work for me. The songwriting has changed. It's not really about melody or lyrics anymore. The star is the producer and the engineer, and they're brilliant. But I missed writing melodies and lyrics, so I went back to what I love doing. You said in a recent interview that I write the songs as your favorite to perform, which is ironic since you didn't write it. Why that one? It surprised me too. At first I had trouble with it because people think it's about me. But then I realized it's about the spirit of music and that I could connect to. Once I figured that out, I loved performing it. Do you think anyone is carrying on that tradition of singer/pianist like you, Elton John, or Billy Joel? I'm trying to think, and I can't come up with anyone whose songs are built around the piano like that. Young artists tend to pick up the guitar. Piano isn't as hip. But the way I play, it's percussive, it's rhythmic. That's what makes me different. Your Manilow Music Project has certainly helped a lot of students whose schools couldn't afford instruments. Do you feel like there's been a change in how the arts are being taught? I hope so. I meet these young people, and they know about the Manilow Music Project, and they're so grateful that somebody is helping them because these schools have no money. One of them showed me a saxophone, which was in terrible shape. I saw a picture of somebody playing a timpani, but there was a big tear all across the timpani drum. But these kids, they love their music classes, and that's encouraging. You recently were honored with the President's Award from the American Advertising Federation Hall of Fame for your work writing jingles. How did that shape you as a songwriter? I learned everything from writing jingles. The rule is the same as pop songwriting. You've got 15 seconds to grab the listener and hit the hook. That's exactly what makes a hit song. If I hadn't spent those years doing jingles for State Farm, Band-Aid, McDonald's, and more, I wouldn't have known how to write pop songs. So, you have a birthday coming up later in June, the most depressing day of the year. Why is that? Well, I'm 100 years old. You're not 100, stop it. No, I'm very happy the way my life has turned out. And this hospital thing really opened my eyes. Nobody thinks about that they're really going to die. But there were a couple of nights where I said, whoa, have I done everything I've wanted to do? Have I been good to people? It's the same old story that you think of when you get that close. And I was right there. I was inside that. Did I do everything I wanted to do? Have I been good to my friends and my family? It kept on going. I hope we all think like that if we're at the edge of the door. And I was there. I think I'm proud of the man I've become, and I felt okay when I left the hospital. But it was a trip. Were you able to say yes to yourself to those questions? I wondered, what is my epitaph? And my epitaph would be, I hope I made people feel good. I always wanted to do that. I want people to feel better when they leave my shows than when they came in. That's my goal. Always has been. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 16 minutes after the hour. And we'll turn to the movies now with an article entitled Day Tells Human Side of Alien Tale. Steven Spielberg and Aliens go back a long time. There's a cinematic equivalent of peanut butter and jelly. And the history of that successful pairing has led to his new sci-fi thriller, Disclosure Day. Such films as Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and War of the Worlds dealt with first contact scenarios, some cuter than others. Armed with a spectacular cast for Disclosure Day, which is giving 3.5 stars, rated PG-13, and will be in theaters June the 12th, Spielberg takes an imaginative look at what it would look like if humanity actually found out it wasn't alone in the universe, and the efforts by some to keep that information hidden. It's classic Spielbergian fare, given that it's a movie much more about us than intergalactic beings. The action-packed cold open, though, is right out of an Indiana Jones flick, where Daniel Kellner, played by Josh O'Connor, has to rescue his girlfriend Jane, played by Eve Hewson, from a governmental goon squad. An ex-con cybersecurity expert, Daniel is among a group of whistleblowers from the shady agency Wardex, who nabbed evidence of a massive, nearly 80-year-old cover-up that, if revealed, would be a turning point for civilization. Wardex's main man, Noah Scanlon, played by Colin Firth, wants to keep that from happening because of the potentially devastating and destabilizing fallout. Meanwhile, in Kansas City, TV meteorologist Margaret Fairchild, played by Emily Blunt, has big dreams of being an anchor, but after a strange visit from a cardinal that flies in her window, she suddenly starts speaking in an alien language on the air, freaking out her boyfriend Jackson, played by Wyatt Russell, and her co-workers. Daniel and Jane go on the run with the help of Daniel's chief ally Hugo, played by Coleman Domingo, to keep them off the grid. And Margaret finds herself strangely driven toward this guy, Daniel, she's never met. Their connection and shared mysterious backgrounds is divulged over the course of the movie, and Daniel and Margaret meet up and work together as complementary components for a common goal. There's a lot of alien intrigue going on, but the human stuff on the whole works much better, mainly thanks to several inspired performances. Blunt, for one, is fantastic in a career standout role. Margaret embarks on a journey that's a complete mystery, yet she also understands people on an extremely deep level. She's an empathy machine, who's the yin to Scanlon's yang, as Firth's character deals in cruelty and misplaced morality. O'Connor gets the role of thinking man's action hero, though he excels in emotionally revealing moments opposite Blunt and Hewson. The latter's character is a former nun, and Hewson and O'Connor get one of the film's headiest scenes discussing how people's belief in God would be affected by the existence of aliens. Religious implications is just one of many big ideas Spielberg dives into with screenwriter David Koepp from Jurassic Park, along with action sequences that feel like his signature touch, from a farmhouse car chase to a harrowing train collision, plus yet another spot-on John Williams soundtrack. Of Spielberg's alien-specific sci-fi bits, some are more successful than others. A cosmic device that works differently depending on the user is among the head-scratching bits, and a lot of things are left frustratingly unexplained. Likely by design, Spielberg's a sly one. But the wholly riveting climax is among the best in Spielberg's legendary career, which is truly saying something. Past and present are used in such a fascinating way as the filmmaker takes his premise to a logical, honest, and heartfelt conclusion. Until actual extraterrestrials show up, the most otherworldly thing we're regularly privy to is how great a storyteller he continues to be. And we'll turn over now to the Lifeline section. First off, making waves, Zendaya. Zendaya is the celebrity that Gen Z adults most want to emulate. 13% of respondents cited her in a new Yahoo/YouGov poll. Celebrities such as Elon Musk, Taylor Swift, LeBron James, Beyonce, and Kylie Jenner failed to break double digits with adults younger than 30, while 36% said they don't model their lives after any celebrity. The 29-year-old former child actress turned movie star also is known for keeping her personal life under wraps, signaling a generational shift away from chronically online fame obsession. And it's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Actor Adrienne Barbeau turns 81. Drummer Frank Beard from ZZ Top, 77. Singer Donnie Van Zant turns 74. Actor Hugh Laurie is 67. TV host surgeon Mehmet Oz, 66. Singer Joya Bruno from Expose, 63. Actor Peter Dinklage, 57. Actor Shia LaBeouf, 40. Actor Claire Holt, 38. Actor Ivana Baquero, 32. And rapper Kodak Black turns 29 today. Now let's take a look at the horoscope. For Aries, taking it personally, the moon's clash with Venus causes you to interpret a misunderstanding as an attack. Taurus, seeking a distraction from your troubles, passing the time with friends is a quick but lackluster fix. Gemini, feeling like the odd man out, you're torn between keeping your convictions or following the herd as the moon and Venus clash. Cancer, making a name for yourself, as the moon and Venus clash, try not to stress over your reputation. Leo, down on romance, a crush isn't panning out like you planned as the moon and Venus clash. Virgo, feeling betrayed, a friend's canceled plans or thoughtless behavior leaves you wounded. Libra, do they even see you? As the moon clashes with Venus, avoid starting a fight just to get someone's attention. Scorpio, want to address a problem and move on? Easy fixes are hard to come by as the moon clashes with Venus. Sagittarius, it's not all about you. Put in extra effort to pacify a loved one as the moon and Venus clash. Capricorn, how high are your standards? We're not suggesting you lower them, just massage them. Aquarius, can't be bothered? Work slips through the cracks as the moon clashes with Venus. You're not in the mood. And Pisces, getting away with it? No one seems to question your self-indulgent decision as the moon clashes with Venus. And we'll take a look now at the USA Today best-selling books list, the top 10. At number 10, Shameful Silence, What You Don't Know About Domestic Violence. The publisher is Josie Bass. The author's Alexandra Lozano. The genre is abuse. Number 9, Dungeon Crawler Carl. The author is Matt Dinneman from the publisher Ace Books. The genre, fantasy, action, and adventure. Rated number 8, The Deal by L. Kennedy. Publisher Bloom Books. Genre, coming of age. Number 7, Chainsaw Man, volume number 2. Tatsuki Fujimoto is the author. Viz Media, the publisher. The genre is supernatural. Number 6, Land by Maggie O'Farrell. Knopf Publishing Group. Genre, literary. Number 5, The Divorce by Frida McFadden. Published by Poison Pen Press. The genre is for women. Number 4, Yesteryear. Written by Carol Claire Burke. Knopf Publishing Group is the publisher, and the genre is feminist. Number 3, Project Hail Mary. Written by Andy Weir. Ballantine Books is the publisher. The genre is thrillers, suspense. Book number 2, Whistler by Ann Patchett. Harper Books is the publisher, and the genre is literary. And the number 1 book, Theo of Golden, written by Alan Levi. Atria Books is the publisher. The genre is literary. And we'll turn to the sports section now. On our first article, It's a Small World. 9 U.S.-born players will wear jerseys other than the Stars and Stripes in this World Cup. With the 2026 World Cup kicking off June 11th, co-host USA will not be playing in the opening match. That honor goes to Mexico, which is a co-host of the 2026 tournament along with Canada. But indirectly, 2 U.S. players will be part of the game in Mexico City, as 2 Americans born in the United States are on El Tri's roster, Brian Gutierrez and Obed Vargas. In a multicultural country like the U.S., 9 players named to World Cup rosters were born in the U.S., but are not representing the Stars and Stripes. Some would not have been candidates to make the U.S. men's national team roster, but others likely would have been able to help Mauricio Pochettino's squad. FIFA's eligibility rules allow for this situation. Article 9 of its regulations state, a player may, only once, request to change the association for which he is eligible to play to the association of another country of which he holds the nationality. I'll look at the American-born players representing other nations at the 2026 World Cup. Mexico, Obed Vargas, Atletico Madrid, and Brian Gutierrez, Chivas. If Brian Gutierrez is overwhelmed, the 22-year-old Illinois native wasn't showing it 2 days away from representing Mexico at the World Cup. I'm happy to be here. I want his support, to do things well, and just want to have fun, he said in Spanish at Mexico's Centro de Alto Rendimiento before a training session on June 9th. It's a dream for me, for any player who aspires to play professionally. My teammates and I are really excited, really happy to start. Yet Gutierrez never wavered as he worked to make that dream come true. Asked what he would have said had he been told 1.5 years ago that he'd be preparing to suit up for Mexico at the World Cup, Gutierrez said he wouldn't have been surprised, but rather happy to know his work paid off. At the time, though, Gutierrez was playing for the Chicago Fire, the MLS club where he developed. A multi-million-dollar move to Chivas de Guadalajara in January helped put Gutierrez firmly on the radar of Mexico manager Javier Aguirre, who called him to El Tri's preparation matches before the tournament. Now, along with fellow MLS product Obed Vargas, Gutierrez is the first Mexican American on a Mexico World Cup roster since the 2014 tournament. That isn't a surprise either. Gutierrez said he and many young soccer players with Mexican roots grow up in the U.S., supporting the national team their parents and grandparents also root for. I think it's international, Gutierrez said of the Mexico national team, which also has players born in Spain, Colombia, and Argentina on its squad. The Mexican national team goes to the United States to play often, and I think it's partly our parents who influence and give their support to the national team. That's what they gave to me. The development in the U.S. helped me a lot. I think I matured a lot in that way. My father also helped me a lot. Rather than feeling overwhelmed on the eve of his first World Cup, Gutierrez seems ready for the ball to get rolling in Mexico's opener against South Africa, a game he could start as one of Mexico's two-way midfielders. We're very happy, very excited, as I said, Gutierrez said. I think the group is really focused. We want to do things well June 11th. Both former U.S. internationals, Vargas and Gutierrez, will be representing their fiercest rivals at the World Cup. Completing his one-time switch in May 2024, Vargas has made 6 appearances for El Tri at the senior level. Now, the Seattle Sounders homegrown product will play a pivotal role in the midfield as El Tri looks to impress on home soil. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Esmir Bajratarevik. Born and raised in Appleton, Wisconsin, Esmir Bajratarevik will be representing Bosnia and Herzegovina. A homegrown product of the New England Revolution, the former U.S. international made the one-time switch in August 2024. On March 31st, the 21-year-old scored the winning penalty in Bosnia's surprising shootout victory against Italy, helping the nation qualify for its first World Cup since 2014. Canada, Jonathan David, Juventus. Born in Brooklyn, Jonathan David moved to Port-au-Prince, Haiti at just 3 months old. 6 years later, David and his family emigrated and settled in Ottawa, where he developed a passion for the beautiful game. Having received a call-up to the United States under-20 team by former head coach Tab Ramos in 2018, the striker declined as he always represented the nation that took him and his family with open arms. Cape Verde, CJ Dos Santos, San Diego FC. A former product of the Philadelphia Union and Benfica academies, goaltender CJ Dos Santos recently declared his allegiance to Cape Verde. Dos Santos was born in Philadelphia to a Cape Verdean father and a Portuguese mother. Currently at San Diego FC, the 25-year-old's one-time switch was approved on May 13th. 5 days later, Cape Verde's head coach, Bubsista, listed him on the World Cup roster, his first ever call-up for Tubereros Azuis. Haiti, Duke Lacroix, Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC, and Derek Etienne Jr., Toronto FC. Making their first World Cup appearance since the 1974 edition in West Germany, Haiti has 2 American-born players representing them, Duke Lacroix and Derek Etienne. A journeyman throughout his entire career, Lacroix has represented Les Grenadiers since 2024, when he was called up for their CONCACAF Nations League champion. Etienne became the 3rd member of his family to represent Haiti at the international level after his father and uncle. Making his first appearance in November 2016, the 29-year-old has been a consistent member over the years for the Caribbean nation. Japan, Zion Suzuki, Parma. Born in the U.S. to a Ghanaian father and Japanese mother, Zion Suzuki was raised in Urawa, Japan. Having been a part of Japan's national team setup since the youth level, the 23-year-old had his first senior international cap in July 2022. Now at Parma in Italy's Serie A, Suzuki is poised for a breakout World Cup with the Samurai Blue. And Jordan Mohammed Abdullanadi from Selangor. A Sporting Kansas City Academy product, Mohammed Abdullanadi will be representing Jordan on the world's biggest stage. Formerly of Notre Dame and the University of Pittsburgh, the 25-year-old made his debut for Al Nashama in 2019, appearing for the under-19 side in a series of friendlies. Having represented the senior team since 2024, the center back has played a pivotal role in helping the nation qualify for its first ever World Cup. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 36 minutes after the hour. Moving on now, our next article is written by Matt Hayes, college football columnist for USA Today Network. Texas Tech takes one reckless gamble. They were the cool kids on the block, the everyman tired of getting pushed around, but with enough financial heft to do something about it. Now they're just the annoying labor, blaring techno music at all hours from a brand new booming sound system, because the HOA is toothless and you can't do a thing about it. From envied by most to hated by all, in a matter of hours. How Texas Tech couldn't see this coming weeks away while fumbling its response to Brendan Sorsby's admitted gambling addiction is as profoundly remarkable as it was completely avoidable. Fighting the Big Ten and SEC super conferences at their own money game with billionaire booster Cody Campbell is one thing. Fighting the NCAA on the unspeakable sin of gambling in college sports is, as they say on the windswept landscape of West Texas, windier than a 50-pound bag of whistling lips. All hot air, no substance. There's no excuse for Texas Tech to declare Sorsby ineligible and then apply to the NCAA for his reinstatement after learning of his habitual gambling problems. No excuse for Texas Tech to not simply tell Sorsby, who, like all NCAA athletes, signs an affidavit every season stating he hasn't gambled, you can play somewhere else, but you're not playing here. No excuse to make it clear to all involved in the ever-flexible world of college sports rules enforcement, this was the line no one can cross. Not even a star quarterback from the transfer portal who just rolled into town as the missing piece of a championship build-out. Because if there is no trust in competition, there is no competition. Sorsby has gambled on sports since the 2022 season with Indiana and through 2 seasons at Cincinnati in 2024-25. He bet on various sports, including on Indiana football games. He bet unders and overs and props. He knew every single time he placed a bet it was wrong and was jeopardizing his NCAA eligibility. He admitted to all of those undeniable truths and argued they were all part of a mental disorder. Now think about this. Cincinnati, in the last 2 seasons with Sorsby as its starting quarterback, was 0-8 in games played in November. The Bearcats were 5-2 in 2024 before losing 5 straight to finish the season. They were 7-1 last season and in the middle of the college football playoff hunt before losing 4 straight to finish the regular season. 2 of the 8 games were against ranked teams and all were Big 12 conference games. In those 8 games, Sorsby had 10 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. In all other games over the 2024-25 seasons, he had 35 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Sorsby also had 4 fumbles lost over the last 2 Novembers, pushing his total to 11 turnovers in those 8 games. There were 3 one-possession losses, and 2 of those losses had similar betting line circumstances. Arizona was a 5.5 favorite against Cincinnati in 2025, and the over was 56.5. The teams combined for 54 points in a 30-24 Arizona win, and Sorsby had 2 interceptions, one on the first play of the game at the Cincinnati 25, and another in the second quarter on the Cincinnati 30. The 2 turnovers led to 10 Arizona points. Cincinnati was a 5.5 favorite against West Virginia in 2024, and the over was 54.5. The teams combined for 55 points in a 31-24 WVU win, and Sorsby threw a pick 6, threw a fumbled backward pass, returned for a touchdown, and had another fumble that led to a WVU field goal. Do these oddly consistent circumstances mean Sorsby was shaving points or manipulating the game in any way? No one knows, and that's the point. When a player has an admitted history of gambling, the integrity of the game is constantly questioned, past, present, and future. It took me all of 5 minutes to find those numbers on Sorsby and Cincinnati, which is just as culpable as Texas Tech in this win-at-all-cost ideal. The Bearcats knew Sorsby was gambling before last season. It doesn't matter which sport, and played him anyway. Any gambling, be it on an athlete's particular sport or games, or otherwise, is detrimental to the integrity of the game. If an athlete loses money gambling on anything, he's liable to do anything to get out of the monetary hole. Texas Tech knew all of this and had all the metadata from the NCAA about Sorsby's gambling addiction, and still decided it would declare him ineligible and immediately apply for his reinstatement. Texas Tech did this knowing full well, of course, the NCAA would deny its reinstatement appeal and the decision would be placed in the hands of a Texas judge. If there's one thing the good folks in Texas, in the state of Texas, are clear about, it's that you're not coming into Texas and telling Texans what they can do and what they can't. Which sounds a lot like Texas Tech over the past 12 months. It started out as a story for the ages, with a billionaire booster full of bravado taking on all comers from the SEC and the Big Ten by using the rules the 2 super conferences manipulated. With former high school football coach Joey McGuire masterfully managing elite, high-priced players from the transfer portal and assimilating them into a fight-for-each-other West Texas mentality. Then they all flew too close to screw everybody when Sorsby rode into town. And suddenly, as they say on the wind-swept flatlands of West Texas, you can't ride 2 horses with 1 ass. Because the higher you get on the ladder, the more your ass shows. Turning to another related article, this one written by Blake Toppelmeyer, columnist USA Today Network. Texas Tech booster seems to be running Big 12. Brett Yormark lost his voice this week. The Big 12 commissioner, who's normally quick to yap about topics such as March Madness expansion, college football playoff reconfiguration, or uncorking zany ideas such as Big 12 Mexico or a glass basketball court with went mum for hours after a Texas judge ruled sports gambling addict Brendan Sorsby eligible to play for Texas Tech this season. Eventually, Yormark found an inkwell and issued a meek statement calling the court ruling significant and saying it could have broad impacts across college athletics and noting it caused great concern among our membership. Truly profound stuff from the Big 12 boss, while his membership loses its collective mind. Does Yormark plan to do anything? No sign of action yet. Meanwhile, Texas Tech mega booster Cody Campbell took a victory lap. Campbell and his Red Raiders shoved a fist through the NCAA's dentures. The NCAA lost its teeth a long time ago. Sorsby's legal team successfully argued their client gambled because of anxiety, and he developed a full-fledged addiction, and therefore he should get to skate past the NCAA's black and white gambling rules. That sounds preposterous? Not to a Texas judge. Campbell has made it clear he'll keep tormenting the NCAA until Congress delivers federal legislation to reshape college sports in a way the billionaire oil tycoon desires. Makes me wonder, and not for the first time, who's really running the Big 12? Is Yormark in charge, or is it Campbell? The Big 12 used to allow the Texas Longhorns to bully the rest of the league and run the boardroom. Yarmark should to ask his predecessors Dan Beebe and Bob Bowlesby how that worked out. Say what you will about the SEC's Greg Sankey or Big Ten's Tony Petitti, and I've said plenty, but neither commissioner could be credible accused of allowing a single booster or one institution to back them into a corner. Petitti suspended Jim Harbaugh for 3 important games in November 2023 after Michigan cheated. Never mind the Wolverines were marching toward the Big Ten's first football national title in nearly a decade. He was willing to enrage Michigan and show some governance. That took spine. Do what's fair to protect the entire conference, Petitti said of his decision to suspend Harbaugh. That was the approach we took. When Alabama ignored NCAA rules last winter and added an NBA G Leaguer to its roster, Sankey took a stand during the court case that would decide whether pro hooper Charles Bediako could play. Sankey went against Alabama. He filed an affidavit in support of the NCAA. Alabama was incensed at Sankey, but Sankey wasn't just standing for NCAA rules and going against the tide. He stood up for SEC teams that weren't flouting rules but had to face the Tide's pro player. A court ruled in favor of the NCAA and got Bediako off the court. Only the judge could say how much Sankey's affidavit influenced the outcome, but I know this. Bediako was playing before Sankey spoke up, then stopped playing after Sankey found his voice. The NCAA will appeal the judge's decision allowing Sorsby to play. Will Yormark file an affidavit to support the NCAA? Will he take any other league actions against Texas Tech or Coach Joey McGuire if they play a quarterback the NCAA had ruled permanently ineligible? Yormark's statement left those questions unanswered. We will continue to monitor and evaluate the situation, Yormark said. He'll monitor? Great. In other words, he'll be a spectator like the rest of us while Texas Tech plays a quarterback who admits he trampled rules by placing thousands of sports wagers, including bets on games involving his team. Big 12 membership is going bonkers over this. Kansas State Athletic Director Gene Taylor told Yahoo Sports his response in 3 explicit, not safe for work words. There's someone who hasn't lost his voice. One Big 12 coach, granted anonymity, told ESPN he's considering teaching his players how to gamble and fix the outcome of games now that sports betting is apparently okay for college athletes. Players would be able to make a lot of money betting on our games, the Big 12 coach told ESPN. One can assume that comment is steeped in frustration and rich in hyperbole, but a coach even talking about fixing games speaks to the magnitude of the situation. Yormark's job calls on him to do what's best for the Big 12. Sorsby playing after years of rule-breaking behavior might be good for Texas Tech, but 15 other institutions call the Big 12 home too. Many of them think this is, to quote Taylor, bull blank. Will Yormark stand with them or stand with Cody Campbell University? Or perhaps he'll just say nothing and watch as the Big 12 comes unglued. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 48 minutes after the hour. Turning to golf now, Fox out to repeat win in Canada. RBC Canadian Open defending champion Ryan Fox conceded that his 4-hole playoff last year against Sam Burns was a bit of a pillow fight until he took matters into his own hand and ripped a cut 3-wood from 269 yards at the par 5 18th to 8 feet to set up the winning birdie. It's the best shot I have ever hit, recalled Fox, who also noted that he sipped some champagne and a couple of glasses of red wine in celebration the night of his triumph. Golf's never a game of perfect. You're always trying to minimize your misses and almost get away with a couple of bad shots here and there. And that was one of the few shots that I've ever hit that I could say was 100% perfect. Indeed, it was. So much so that the club installed a plaque to commemorate the shot. Fox, a 39-year-old native of New Zealand, returns this week to TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley North Course in Caledon, Ontario, for the 115th playing of Canada's National Championship, and had a chance to see the plaque for the first time on June 10th. I've never had one of those before, so that was a pretty cool novelty today, he said during a press conference on the eve of the championship. The finishing hole at TPC Toronto, which sits on land that once served as a sand and gravel quarry and features a pond dangerously close to the green, could be the site of another dramatic finish on Sunday. With the pond there, it just seemed to be a good natural end for a risk-reward par 5, original course architect Doug Carrick, who watched last year's tournament on TV, told Score Golf. It's kind of a double dogleg where you have to bite off the corners on both shots to get at the green. That was always the intention with that hole. Growing up as the son of Grant Fox, one of the greatest rugby players New Zealand has ever produced, Fox learned an important lesson. Hard work beats talents. He switched his focus to golf at age 18 and notched 4 wins on the DP World Tour, including the BMW PGA Championship, its preeminent title. But he called winning on the PGA Tour, which he had done for the first time in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, just a month before his victory in Canada, a different beast. I kind of always felt like I could compete out here, but it's a bit easier to believe it when you actually do it, he said. That 5-week period last year was kind of what I had dreamed of since I took up golf full time. Still crazy to think. I've just looked at a few of the names on the trophy here, that my name is part of that history. The Canadian Open is the 4th oldest tournament behind the British Open, US Open, and BMW Championship, formerly known as the Western Open, begun in 1899, 5 years before the Canadian Open. This week's field includes 44 players ranked in the top 100 of the official World Golf Ranking, with 14 of those in the top 50. 4 top 10 players headline the field. Number 4, Matt Fitzpatrick, a 3-time PGA Tour winner this season. Number 6, Justin Rose, winner of the Farmers Insurance Open earlier this season. Number 7, Tommy Fleetwood, the reigning FedEx Cup champion. And number 10, Colin Morikawa, winner of the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am in February. It seems like a stronger field than last year, said Fox. Coming from Memorial last week and heading into Shinnecock next week, site of the US Open, it's kind of nice to know that there are some birdies out here if you do play well. And here's a sidebar relevant to the Canadian Open. 75%. That's how many of 2025 RBC Canadian champ Ryan Fox's shots favored a left-to-right shape with an average curve of 79 feet. In fact, 10 of the 12 players who finished inside the top 10 of the leaderboard last year favored a left-to-right tee shot shape for the week at TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley. And keep an eye on Brooks Koepka. He ranks 2nd in greens in regulation, on track for his highest rank in a season in his PGA Tour career. He is set to make his 4th appearance at this event and his first since 2019. Shane Lowry. The Irishman has 4 top 15 finishes at the RBC Canadian Open, tied for his 3rd most in an event in his PGA Tour career. Lowry has improved his par 5 scoring average rank from tied for 169th in 2025 to tied for 12th this season, marking the 2nd largest rank improvement of any player year over year. Nick Taylor, the Canadian native, made a 72-foot eagle putt on the 4th playoff hole to clinch the win in 2023 in a playoff over Tommy Fleetwood, becoming the first Canadian to win the event since 1954. He's been a fast starter of late. Taylor has 7 consecutive opening rounds under par this season, the longest active streak of any player. And JT Poston won the Memorial Tournament last weekend and earned 700 points to climb to number 32 in the season's points race. And now we'll take a look at the Stanley Cup Final in the NHL. Stahl makes history as Hurricanes tie series. Carolina Hurricanes captain Jordan Staal is known for his face-off prowess, defensive abilities, and leadership, but his current goal streak has put him in the company of Hall of Famers. Staal scored twice for a 5-3 victory against the Vegas Golden Knights on June the 9th. His first goal allowed him to tie Hall of Famers Mike Bossy and Johnny Busick, with a goal in each of the first 4 games of a Stanley Cup final. Everyone knows he's a good defensive player, but he's got some offensive ability too, said Hurricanes coach Rod Brindamore. For whatever reason, goals are going in. The first goal gave Carolina a 3-1 lead in the first period. After Vegas roared back to tie the score in the second period, Staal broke the tie in the third period with a shot as he was falling as the Hurricanes capitalized on a turnover. My goodness, my feet were twisted over each other, and I ended up getting enough good wood on it, and I did just see it poke in, he told Sportsnet about his 7th goal of the playoffs. The story at the beginning of Game 4 was Hurricanes goalie Brandon Bussi getting the start and Frederik Andersen not dressing in order to get rest. But Staal, 37, stole the show and frustrated the Golden Knights. Coach John Tortorella thought they had him under control in front of the first goal before he scored. He's a big man, Tortorella said. He's a good player. That's where he lives. We just have to do a better job. We have to be strong and have to win that battle. Home ice advantage shifts back to the Hurricanes with 2 of the final 3 games in Raleigh, North Carolina, if the series goes to 7 games. Game 5 is at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, June 11th. It will be televised by ABC. The Golden Knights had fought back in the second period to tie the game at 3-3 and had a chance to take a commanding 3-1 series lead if they won the third period. Instead, they gave up a second goal by Staal. The frustrating part for me is they didn't earn their winning goal, Tortorella told reporters. He was referring to a bad turnover that led to a Seth Jarvis chance in front that was stopped by Carter Hart. Right after that, we made another mistake, he said. We leave the front of the net. The Hurricanes retrieved the puck, which eventually went to Staal, who scored while falling down. It's just for free, Tortorella said. It's a hard one for me in the third period. Even though the Golden Knights had rallied, there were problems earlier in the game. They gave up 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. They took a penalty for too many men on the ice, and Staal scored on a rebound in the crease. We have him, but then we let him off the hook, the coach said. He's killing us in front of the net. We have to do a better job around the blue. Tortorella liked the team's late press, but we don't get it done. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for June 11th, 2026. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Will Evans. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 14 of 1929 by Andrew Ross Sorkin. Following that at 3 o'clock is Smithsonian Magazine, and at 4 o'clock a re-airing of the Buffalo News. Stay with us. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.